many of you are excited to see, is Karen Ranzi, and she's here to talk about plant-based lifestyle and raw vegan eating. So, Karen?
Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Karen Ranzi, and these are my two books up here. One is called Creating Healthy Children Through Attachment Parenting and Raw Foods. Has anybody had raw foods? Like, do you eat fruits and vegetables? Awesome, awesome. As dietetic students, I think that's very, very important. The other book is a recipe book, Raw Vegan Recipe Fund for Families, and it's 115 recipes for energetic living, for busy people and families. And I run a 5-week raw food coaching program, about a half an hour from here in Ranzi, New Jersey. And I bring in people who want to learn about this. And what I'm finding is that people are losing weight, people are healing from all kinds of conditions just by adding an abundance of raw living plant foods to their diet and lifestyle. And so I am going to talk about the benefits of plant-based nutrition today. I am also a speech and language pathologist. I went to Montclair State as an undergraduate, and I was part of the Communication Sciences and Disorders Department way back in the 1970s. And I went to New York University for graduate school and have been working as a speech and language therapist for close to 40 years. The past 15 years, I have been focusing on autism. And my third book is going to be on nutrition for autism. Because I'm seeing a lot of really impressive improvements and changes for children on the autism spectrum when they start to do things like green juicing. Does anybody have a juice machine? Great to see some juice machines. Okay. My own son had life-threatening asthma as a baby. He's 26 now, but when he was young, he was very ill the first 3 years of his life. And when he was 3 years old, I had started to learn more about a healthy plant-based diet, and I started doing green juices for him and giving him an abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables. And all of that fiber and all of that fresh water content and living nutrition with higher nutrient density than when we cook our foods at high temperatures, all of those nutrients helped him to heal in about 10 to 11 months from very severe asthma. So that spoke to me, and I continued to research at that point, which culminated into Creating Healthy Children, which has won numerous awards. And there's also the story of 30 families around the world who have gone to a lifestyle which is largely raw plant foods and all of their healing stories. And this book goes from pregnancy all the way up to teenagers and young adults, your age. So I want to start by having you look at this graph of U.S. food consumption as a percentage of calories. You can see that 63% of what we eat in the United States is processed, packaged, factory foods. That's what we eat. That's most of the food that we eat, with added fats and oils, sugars, and refined grains. All right, so not very healthy to be eating all of these packaged foods. Then if you look over at the 25%, that's meat and animal foods. Now, meat and animal foods are very high in saturated fat and cholesterol, all animal foods, and they have no fiber for proper digestion. So they get lodged into the intestines. And then later on, we see different diseases. Now, some people say to me, well, what about grass-fed? Isn't grass-fed better and cage-free, things like that? Still saturated fat and cholesterol, still has no fiber. So not healthy. If you look at the longest lived populations, the Okinawans were the longest lived populations. They had 1% animal food in their diet. That is like almost nothing. They mostly were plant eaters. And I'm going to talk more about this later. And today, because of the way that we eat, especially in this country, we have major disease epidemics, asthma and allergies. Obesity has more than doubled since the 1970s. Autism. I told you I work with children on the autism spectrum. I've been doing that for 40 years. 40 years ago, autism was 1 in 10,000 children. Today, autism is 1 in 49 children in the state of New Jersey. That is a scary statistic, and I don't believe that that can all be genetic. Diabetes is at all-time high rates. Cancer is now 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women. I never ever thought years ago that I would see those statistics. Heart problems also on the rise. Childhood leukemia is the one cancer that is widespread today amongst children. We also are experiencing reduced fertility. John Robbins, in his book, The Food Revolution, says that 25% of college students are infertile. And he is relating that to diet and lifestyle. Now, even though we all inherited genes from relatives who ate depleted foods, we have the power to make major changes for future generations just by changing our diet and our lifestyle and getting the plant-based foods in. So what are the problems with processed and refined foods? I'm going to tell you about a study. This is the only study that I'm going to give you, but I think this one is a really important one. At the University of Stockholm in 2002, there was a study done by the scientists there on acrylamides, and I'm going to tell you what that is. They started with a white potato, and they examined it under the microscope at higher and higher temperatures. So they started with steaming, and steaming seemed fine. Then they baked the potato, and you know when you get that nice browning that everybody likes, that crunchy browning, when you bake a potato? I used to love eating my potatoes really brown and crunchy. The scientists there said that that is the beginning of the formation of acrylamide. Acrylamide is a plastic-like coating around the food substance, and the scientists at the University of Stockholm declared that that acrylamide is carcinogenic. What is carcinogenic? Cancer causing. Nice to hear so many of you say that you understand. So acrylamide is not something that's healthy for us. What they also said was as they cooked the potato at even higher temperatures, up to the point of like French fries and potato chips, that you got even much higher temperatures of like even up to like 400 and 500 degrees. And they said that there was a very clear covering of acrylamides on all of those food substances. And the children of today who are growing up on these processed and refined foods, the scientists said that we are already seeing these children dying before their parents. And that we will see more and more of this in the next 2 decades. We also need to look at nutrient loss. When we eat foods that are highly cooked and processed, anywhere between 35 and 85% of the nutrition is lost, depending on the cooking temperature. I was very fortunate in that my grandmother, my father's mother, In the 1920s, in the early 1920s, she healed from asthma and emphysema by going to a plant-based diet. And she lived with us when I was growing up, and I still remember when I was ages 10 and 12, she was telling me, tell your mom not to cook the broccoli until it turns yellow, and eat a lot of your food fresh and natural. They didn't have the word raw back in the 1920s, but they certainly used the words natural and fresh and uncooked. So she was telling me to eat a lot of my food as plant food, fruits and vegetables, and eat as much as I could that was uncooked. Also, toxic additives. When you look at processed and refined foods, there are a lot of additives that you might not even understand. My kids and I, when my kids were young, we played a game, and we called ourselves supermarket sleuths. And we went into the supermarket, and we examined all of the packaged foods. And I brought a whole list of hidden food labeling, and I had them find those ingredients in the packaged processed foods. And I'm talking about even like organic processed cereals. And those organic processed cereals are also cooked at high temperatures and have loads of acrylamides. And just because it says organic is just excellent marketing. And so we found things in the processed foods such as hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Sounds healthy, right? It's MSG, monosodium glutamate, an excitotoxin. There's a whole book about excitotoxins written by a neurosurgeon, Dr. Russell Blaylock. And he talks about what MSG, monosodium glutamate, does to the body. And it causes a lot of disorders, including attention deficit disorder and autism.